Welcome back, everyone, to Lesbian Book Club, a podcast for the quiet gaze. I am your host, Lauren Hogue, and today we're going to be discussing a book called A People's History of Heaven. And I'm going to be joined by an absolutely lovely guest co host who will be introducing herself right after the intro here. I do just want to let everyone know that this book does deal with some heavier themes. And if we ever get to a point where we're discussing something that is too much for you, please feel free to skip ahead or even tap out. We will be covering other books that deal with less heavy themes in the future. Please follow us over on Instagram and TikTok at the Lesbian Book Club Pod. This is where you can keep up to date with everything that we're going to be reading or covering in the future so that you could join along with our community in reading with us and then coming to the podcast as if it's your own little book club. So grab a blanket, grab some coffee or some tea, and buckle up because we are about to get started.
Where are the quiet gays? Where are the quiet gays supposed to go?
Welcome back, everyone, to our 5th episode of Lesbian Book Club. I'm here with my guest co-host, Tanaya. Can you say hi to everyone?
Yeah, so my name is Tanaya. I also pronounce my name Tanaya, but either is fine. It's very difficult to pronounce my name, so it's fine. And my sun is Aries, my moon is Cancer, and my rising is Libra. I'm always forgetting that. And we know each other through basketball, actually. We met probably almost 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And we're going to be covering a book called A People's History of Heaven, written by the amazing...
I think it's Mathangi Subramanian. I'm not sure how to say her first name.
Well, you have a better shot at saying it than I do. You just got back from Australia. Mm-hmm. How was your trip?
Oh my God, amazing. So my grandmother lives there. Okay. So me and my sister went to visit her. So lots of grandmother time, lots of nature time. Lots of fun. Fun in the sun. We were in the sun a lot.
Yeah, because is it summer there right now?
It is summer there.
What was your highlight? Did you get to see any kangaroos?
We did see a lot of wallabies, actually. Not that many kangaroos. Wallabies are like...
what's the difference?
Wallabies are like mini kangaroos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're like...
Do they fight?
They don't fight how kangaroos do. I know. I got that question a lot, actually. But we also went out to the Great Barrier Reef and went out on a little boat. So that was definitely my highlight.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
To this little island, and it was crazy and beautiful.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Mm-hmm. I need to get my passport renewed.
Yeah.
So that I can go places again.
Australia it's like the US, but... Okay, we can cut this out. But it's like if the government cared about you more.
Why would we cut that out? That's accurate.
It's like
Do they have like
US,
a functioning healthcare system?
It's like more functioning, but I hear that it's getting worse. Like I'm no expert. Just from the vibes that I got, like it seems like because people are more helpful. Like, people are nicer. They're less stressed out. Like everyone seems
more
to
of
be
like
chilled
a
out.
Communal based society versus like singular like over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough. No, the thing that keeps me from going to Australia, other than my passport, would be the bugs and the spiders. I'm so scared.
So valid. What my impression of Australia is that it's filled with extremely dangerous animals and then like extremely like unreasonably cute ones.
Right.
So it's just so bizarre. Like we were gonna go snorkeling. Yeah. And I was so worried for like the 2 weeks preceding because it's stinger season is what they call it there. They have these like insane like box jellyfish that can kill you if they sting you in 3 to 5 minutes.
Oh my God. How do they have like antidote, or is it like where you have to pee on it, or?
Okay, I feel like for those, like it's if you get stung, it's very rare. Like I'm sorry, it's probably not a good.
Oh my God, you're just
not
dead.
Good for you. But we did have stinger suits and it was fine. But okay. There's an example of the crazy wildlife on that island. Giant island.
Catch me not going there.
Yeah.
Can you tell me kind of about what your connection to this book is?
Yeah, so I think it was pretty straightforward. I just wanted to like read a book about queer brown girls, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I actually haven't read one before, I don't think. And so I just was like, this is a great opportunity. Let me try to find one. And I did research. There's honestly not that many of them out there from what I can tell, unless I'm like searching the wrong way or just like don't know what I'm doing. I could not find, I don't know, have you?
Honestly, so I'm trying to build a database right now for lots of queer books, but honestly, there are people that have already done it. So you're on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So search it in the TikTok, and there's so many. But I totally agree. A lot of what I've come across is just very white. Yeah. So I totally hear it's a struggle to find like diversity.
Even within like any demographic, there are not that many honestly good queer women's books, but they're there, and that's why we're here, I guess. So
yes, we're trying to be
hitting on them to start out.
No. It's a real problem, I feel like, within the industry. And I feel like hopefully with this podcast we can do a nice, well-rounded assortment of books on here.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Okay, great. So this book is, honestly, what were your like first impressions of the book? The good, the bad, the ugly, anything you want to say, it's totally fine.
I have so much to say, so it's like, how do I make it brief? Why don't you go first?
Don't make it brief. You can make it as long as you want. I thought the writing was beautiful. I texted you when I first started reading it. I was actually at a trampoline park with my kids. I opened this book up, and I'm gonna like cry right now, but the first page made me like sob. Because I'm coming also like, you're a brown girl reading about queer brown girls, right? But I'm a mom, and there's so much mom stuff in this book. And I was, and like the part that got me, I can literally remember it. It said, our houses may break, but our moms don't.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had to close the book. I was like, I'm going to cry in front of all these kids. That really stuck out to me. And I was like, this is going to be, and I cried through like literally this whole book.
Oh my gosh.
Like all the moms and the grandmas. And then when you find out about like Banu's, how do you say it? Banu's Aji?
Yeah, Aji.
Okay, Aji. Okay. I was like, oh my God, like there was,
that was
and Nilama Auntie, who's Deepa's mom.
Yeah.
I was like, her story is so sad. And like how much, like how connected are you to India? Like obviously you're Indian, but.
Yeah, no, totally. I think I was going to like start off with like a huge caveat. Because, so when I first started reading this book, I think my like first initial feeling was like stress. Because I was like, okay, this book is like very niche. First of all, it's like a very specific perspective. And it's like so far removed from anything I have obviously ever experienced. And so I was like, you know, like that feeling when you're in class and like in school. Yeah. And like you're discussing like the Indus Valley civilization.
Yes.
And like everyone turns to look at you because
Me
you're
as
like
a history nerd. I'm like, yes, the Indus Valley. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, or like Hinduism or whatever. Like anything that's even a little brown coded, even if it may not be Indian, like everyone like turns to look at you, and then you're like, as a 9-year-old, you're like, am I the expert on this topic? I was like, am I expected to speak about this and give my opinion? You know, so that was like my first thing where I was like, okay, I'm going to go into this space. I'm going to be the brown girl.
Yeah.
And so I think I just want to start out by saying that like the only like perspective I have for this is just like my lived experience.
Yeah.
And so, I did live in India for 9 years growing up.
Okay.
Like back and forth. Like I moved there, moved back, moved there, moved back. So whatever experience I have is like just from that
It's
time
from childhood.
and from my upbringing. And like, I am so not one of those girlies who's like read up a lot about it and stuff, and I don't claim to be and stuff. So that was like my first big disclaimer and caveat.
Absolutely. No, thank you.
Yeah. And also, especially coming from like the very specific context and perspective that these girls are coming from, there's no way I could speak for them.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's a very poverty-led book.
Yeah.
And I did read some reviews on it beforehand where they were like, I was expecting it to be, you know, sad and poverty-stricken. And I was like, that is not what I got from it at all. It was so joyful, and like there was so much hope. But it's almost like in reading it, that's the only thing they could have too. Was like their own, you know, what
their
else?
Own resilience.
Yeah, what else is there to be or have when you're in a circumstance that is poverty stricken, which their lives were coming from.
Yeah, totally.
So first impressions of the book, I loved the writing. I thought it was beautiful. I wish we had gotten like a little more queer stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah.
To be fair, like Rukshana, we get to talk about her with Leela, but like there's nothing there really.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh,
I know.
I like a girl. And then we have Joy, who's trans, and I thought I honestly loved Joy's parts of the book.
Yeah.
Because it was never about that. They're just like, she's our queen, she's our leader, and we love her. And her mom went to bat for her, which was incredible. Her teacher.
I know.
Or not her teacher, I'm sorry, like the headmistress, like the principal. And I thought that was beautiful. I loved the narrator. Because the narrator, like, was switching from, like, it kind of sounded like it was all the girls' perspective into one. Yeah. And talking about us. They talked about us all the time. And we would go here and we would do this. But it never said who, if it was, Deepa or Joy or Rukshana. It never said who it was. Yeah. But they would always talk about the one person that we were focused on at the time.
Yeah, totally.
I really liked that. Yeah. Did you like that?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was actually a little confusing for like maybe the first few, because I was like, who is the narrator? Yeah. So for a long time, I was like, who is the narrator? And then I actually like read towards the end of the book, she has like some questions for discussion and stuff. And there's a name for it, which I can actually check in the book. It's like first person plural or something. It's like a specific.
Yeah, I think it was first person plural, but it also switched to like third person omniscient. It would like switch back and forth. But yeah, I definitely was like.
It was very interesting for sure. I have never. And I think she was trying to do that to show like how much of a unit they all are. Like they're so tightly knit that they kind of thought like that. They're like, we. And so, yeah, that was very interesting for sure.
I love that part. Will you tell us kind of the setting? How does the book start out? So we'll just get into it, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
Where does the book start? Where are we? What are we doing?
So it's about 5 girls, I would say like teenagers, just like coming of age in Bangalore, which is the city in like south of India in Karnataka. And it just kind of follows specifically their lives, and then also like all of the women around them, like their moms and their grandmothers, their aunts. So it's mostly about the women. Okay. And it's based in a slum in Bangalore, and Bangalore is like a very large urban, like high-tech city. I just looked it up before this. It's like the 3rd most populated city in India. So, so it's like a very specific setting within an extremely like diverse, much larger setting. Okay. Yeah. So that's like, I guess, the bird's eye view.
So we end up starting out in their preschool. The book opens up and we learn that one of our girls, Deepa, is blind. But because there's very little healthcare, there's very little just healthcare infrastructure at all, no one knows she's blind. Do her parents know she's blind? Because they talk about when she's born, her eyes don't work. But I don't know if that's like the parents actually know that.
I think it's like, I think the parents do know. Okay. I actually can't remember exactly what happened, but what I know for sure is that the school doesn't have the infrastructure to like, or the school feels like they won't be able to accommodate her in their classes because they're like, we don't have anything for blind or almost blind. I don't know what the actual term is. Yeah. Kids. Visually and so we can't. Maybe, yeah. So I don't remember. I almost feel like even the parents didn't know.
That's what I was thinking too.
I don't remember what her family situation was.
Well, her mom is Neelama Auntie, and who's an incredible character. Yeah. I enjoyed her story arc so much. But my little thing that I wanted to talk about was when we get to see the girls as a unit for the first time, when they're like shielding and helping Deepa in preschool. Oh yeah. So you just have to, you see these 4 at this point it's 4 little girls. Yeah. It's Rukshana and Deepa, who's blind, and then Joy, who isn't Joy at this point, and who's the 4th?
Rukshana, Deepa,
Banu. Yes, Banu. And they all help. They have figured out as 4-year-olds that Deepa can't see. She can't write. She can't write her name. And they just, as a collective community, start taking care of her. Like, there's like line leaders and things in preschool. Yeah. And when she's the line leader, she doesn't lead the line well. So they start putting her hand on her shoulder to like help her. And they bring her snacks. And the only reason it gets found out that Deepa's blind is because through like a basically series of unfortunate events, all the girls are doing something else at the time when Deepa's told to put her sandals on.
Yeah.
So she's like down on the ground trying to figure out whose sandals are hers by like touch and like smell even. And the teacher comes over and is like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And then I think it's Rukshana who's like, "She can't see. What do you guys, like, how do you guys not know this? She can't see." And so then the teachers have to go to the parents' house and have a discussion. And they're kind of like, not that we don't want her at the school, but we don't think she's going to do well here.
Yeah. No, they were like, we don't have the infrastructure. We can't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And this is pre-Janki ma'am.
What is that? Oh.
Like what?
Who is that?
Janki ma'am is the headmistress?
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is like she's not there
yet. That's not how I said it when I was reading it in my head.
No, that's okay. I was like, understandable.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell from this.
But who that character is phenomenal.
I know.
She is single.
She was my fave. Yeah.
Yeah, she was my fave. I had to say Neelama Auntie was kind of my fave.
Really?
Which is Deepa's mom.
I have to, what was her?
So, we should just get into that part. So, the way this book is written, it kind of goes and talks about each girl for a while, and then it kind of brings in and like weaves in the moms of each girl's narrative. And Neelama Auntie had a few children, I think a few sons, and like some miscarriages.
Oh, right.
And then I believe, I can't remember who it is, but takes them to this like basically like white savior hospital and is like, you know, have your baby here. We make sure that they stay alive.
Yeah.
But you have to sign.
Oh my God. It all came back.
Yes. But you have to sign.
So horrific.
All this paperwork, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of them are illiterate. And she can't read. So they end up basically giving Neelama Auntie a unmedicated C-section. And she passes out from the pain, of course. And then while they're doing the C-section, they sterilize her.
Yeah.
And I was reading this and I was literally crying because, and also in India, having a boy is better, you know, as fucked up as that is. Like, that's just the culture of the time because girls cost money, boys get married and get jobs. Like, so yeah, Deepa's mom is now sterile. She only has a daughter, and on top of that, it's a disabled daughter. So that's just like hardship. She thinks her husband's gonna leave, but Neelama Auntie is incredibly worried that her husband's gonna leave her now that she just had a girl, and you know she comes home and it actually acts a lot different than a lot of the men do because apparently something that is kind of rampant in this more poverty-stricken area is like the men leaving, especially if there's any type of hardship. And I am gonna blame them, but I'm also not gonna blame them because like poverty is the worst. Like you can't make quote unquote good decisions or like
when your basic needs aren't met.
Yeah, when you're just in survival mode. So she's very concerned that he's going to leave, and he actually brings her to this little sign that says, like, Indian families can only have one child. And I think I don't know if that was the law of the land or if it was, like, something imposed.
I think it's, like, one of those, from what I'm guessing, it's, like, one of those government, like, advices or something to the community saying, like, have less children, that kind of a thing, which they, to my knowledge, put more in the like lower, you know how it works, like lower SEC areas is where they're giving out this messaging and propaganda as like have less kids. And you saw the sterilization too, so like that is the...
Yep, that's exactly what I was going for. But he brings her to this sign and she's holding this little tiny newborn, and he goes, look, they say we can have one. We have our one. We're complete. And he's there the whole book. Like he's not any type of like main character or anything, but yeah, that to me was like, I was
relief.
Like,
yeah, like there are good men.
Yeah, literally. So yeah, that was Neelama Auntie's kind of story, and she constantly goes to bat for Deepa. I think Deepa stays in school until like I think second, third.
Not a long time, like elementary school.
Yeah. So okay, so that's Deepa and her mom. And then, who else should we talk about?
Oh my gosh, there's simply so many characters.
I know. Sometimes I like to go chronological order, but I also feel like in this book, it's kind of easy to hop around.
I almost feel like this book was like, it was like she was using the stories of these characters to almost like educate an outsider about the conditions that they lived in addition to like, you know, paint like a against all odds type of story where she's like, oh, against everything, you know, they have so much resilience and joy and they make everything work, and like look at their personalities. Like that's definitely was her highlight, but I think she was also doing the most in trying to show, like, educate and out. It was definitely like, to me, it came across as a story for an outsider, written by an outsider also, which we'll get into later. But anyway, so I feel like the story, she was like using the stories of the characters to try and like educate everybody, and then have like this central plot line of like the demolition, obviously, which is like kind of tied it all together throughout. Yeah. So there was like little stories about each character and stuff, and like the timeline was like all over the place also. And yeah, so that was Deepa. Then we had Banu. Okay. I don't know if it's Banu or Banu. We may never know. It sounds like a nickname to me.
Oh, does it? Okay. Yeah. I mean, in my head, I said Banu, and I think that also, I kind of did a hybrid of book and audiobook.
Is that what she was saying?
She said Banu, but you said her pronunciation's off.
It's a whole, I have so many tangents to go on, but...
Go down them. What's your tangent on that one?
Okay, on that one, I think it's like one of those things when it's like, when you have like any kind of media that is a representation of your own community, it's difficult because you're like their toughest critic, but then you're also going to be like their biggest defender, because you're like, you know, because you're obviously, it's like you feel some connection to it, and you're like, you don't want anybody to say anything about it, but you also want it to be a perfect representation. Right. And like any context that you look at it, like if they're just showing like poverty, like how they are in this, then you want to like reassure an outsider that that's not all there is. You know, there's so much more. There's a lot of abundance. There's a lot of in between. This is just one example. But then if they show a story of like abundance and wealth, then you're like, okay, but that is an exception, or like, you know, this is just one story. And so there's really like no one way to have a story which is going to represent the entire culture and people to you. But I think that's always the fear, at least for myself, when it's like, when you feel like an outsider is getting a glimpse into your whatever, your community, the fear is that they're going to use that one representation, that one book, that one movie, that one whatever, to create their entire understanding of the culture.
I think you just gave the most complete definition of tokenism I've ever heard.
Okay, see, like, I am so not good with, like, the terminology for these things. But I think that's the feeling that I definitely got with, like, beginning to read this. I was like, it's like the panic. But then you just have to come with it knowing that, like, people who are in these spaces who are trying to, like, expose themselves will be trying to create, like, a holistic understanding of these things, and won't be, you know, just so quick to judge based off of, like, one thing. And
I think as the book went on, I think the author did a decent job of like taking on some of those class issues. I mean, she talks about the caste system, but we also get to see it in, like, we talk about the demolition, and in this book, they are constantly trying to demolish this slum to put up a mall or to put up a parking lot. And the women are really the ones who come in and say, like, absolutely not. They form human chains. They, you know, talk to officials. It's like a whole thing. But in that, you see the police officers who are, you know, still very poor, but slightly higher because they have a government job, right? Or, you know, you see, can you please pronounce the principal's name again?
Janki ma'am.
Janki ma'am. Yeah. She's kind of a different class as well. She has her own, like, house with, like, a little balcony. You know, so, and she has sandals, which a lot of the girls don't have. And so you get to see little glimpses of different things. Which I thought was really nice. But it definitely was like I don't want to say one-sided, but it was definitely from the perspective of the poorest of the poor. Which, those stories need to be told.
Absolutely.
Like, absolutely. And so I think she did a good job of trying to bring in different themes in that aspect.
Totally. I will give her all the credit for trying to bring in so many things into the story. I almost feel like this was an extremely ambitious undertaking. Like, to have the stories of 5 girl. First of all, 5 main characters.
That's a lot of characters.
That is a lot of characters. And then she was like, I am going to tackle religion. I'm going to tackle caste, class, the patriarchy, feminism, bureaucracy. She's like, I am going to try and pack everything I possibly can into this novel. So I will give it to her for like that attempt, because there was so much content in that book in terms of just like the setting.
Yep.
You know, so
yes, you do.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so who is the next person you want to talk about?
Sorry,
so
it was such a long tangent.
There's no sorries allowed on this podcast. Okay, this is how literal book clubs go. So I'm all here for it.
No, I'm loving this. This is so much. I love talking about books. Also.
I know, that's why I called you up. So Tanaya was part of my previous book club that we hosted through our basketball community, and you were always the one that I was most excited to hear your thoughts on. I'm so serious. You know, you, Roxy, you know, there were a couple other people, Leah, who I definitely need to get on this podcast.
Oh yes, for sure.
Yeah, you always have very insightful takes, so I'm always looking forward to it.
Thank you. So do you.
I was like, please come talk books with me.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, absolutely.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Okay, so next character.
Okay.
Banu.
Yes. So Banu. So I actually really liked that character. So Banu is supposed to be this. So she's one of the girls. She doesn't talk very much. She's kind of quiet. She's like notoriously not good at school. So she's like not academically intelligent, doesn't seem to know what's going on much in class and stuff. But then we find out that she's actually extremely artistically gifted. And then she's also like very good at building things.
Yes.
It's like a little mechanical engineer brain.
Which we get. I have to bring this up because we talked so much about rats on the last podcast.
Oh, really?
And literally the reason Banu is like, or not the reason, but like the way we get introduced to Banu as a builder is there's a rat problem. Yeah. And I literally texted
Banu the builder. Yeah, that was one of the chapters.
I texted Haley and I was like, there are rats in this book too. You have no idea. This is just going to be a running theme on this podcast.
Rats, what brings the whole world together.
Seriously, Rat Girl podcast again. But yeah, there's a rat problem. So anyway, we first get to see her, Banu the builder. I just got it. That's really funny. Like Bob the builder. We get to see her building stuff first, and then it transitions more into like her artistic. But tell us about that.
Yeah, so we hear a lot about how she's like helps people in her community fix things, and there ends up being a rat problem in the school, and she's the one who like somehow magically at the age of, what is this, 4th grade, I think?
Yeah, they're like, still elementary school.
Yeah, manages to like mobilize the other girls to like go and get all the supplies they need and like literally fix the rat problem by like building fences and all with no money and as a literal child. So.
Yeah, that's what the teacher, or God, I keep saying teacher when I mean principal, says. She's like, well, how much is this going to cost? And Banu's like, nothing. I'll source the materials myself. Yeah. And then
a little genius, basically.
Yes, and all the girls are like, oh, it's Banu's project time. Okay, so we're all going to go help Banu. Yeah. And they work like hours after school till it's like nighttime. And
performing child labor.
Yeah, unpaid. But they're like, we're making our school better.
Yeah.
But I love that because then the principal comes in and says, you know, oh, I heard they have a rat problem over at this other place now. And Banu just like...
Oh, at the mall.
Yes, and Banu just like smiles because she knows that means that like...
Their own one is working. Yeah. They're like, fortifications.
Yes, I love that part.
So then the story goes into like this whole mysterious thing that's happening all around town where this particular slogan keeps showing up, and in this moment I can't remember.
It's like Column is here? Callum?
This slogan shows up and we'll remember it at some point.
Yeah.
Basically it means like thief was here, I think is what they find out in like big blue graffiti letters, shows up all over town, and they're basically along with these like beautiful murals.
So this was very like a Banksy.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, totally. Yeah. And like the whole city, nobody knows who this person is. They're trying to like apprehend them, and then we find out that it's Banu.
Right. Which is such a good cover because everyone thought it was a boy.
Yeah.
There was not even any hint.
Nobody even considered it could be a girl. Yeah.
Right. Yep. So yeah, Banu is like this little, not only is she a builder, an organizer, like she's really great, even though she's quiet, such a great organizer. She's also just like this very talented artist, which we find out too, she got it from her grandma.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
Oh my god, I
know.
love that character too.
Oh, well, tell
Yeah.
us about Banu's grandma.
So Banu's Aji. Aji means grandmother actually in my language. And so I don't know, it might be in another Indian language too. There's
Okay,
like
what
a
language
ton
do
of different
you,
languages.
are you fluent?
I am colloquially
Okay.
Like I can hold a conversation, I can talk to my family.
What's your
I can
language?
read and write, but very slowly.
Okay.
It's Marathi.
Okay.
I think they mentioned it once in the book and I was like, woo.
Hey, yeah, representation.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's like the only caregiver for Banu, I feel like, right?
Yeah, her mom and dad left.
Which is of course very sad. And she is I think it's called Kolam. I don't know if it's Kolam or I think it's Kolam probably. Kolam lady, which is like this form of art, like ceremonial art almost.
Okay, I was wondering. I was like, I don't know what that means.
I'll have to show you a picture.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's with powders,
Yeah.
like on driveways.
Yeah.
So I actually, when I was living in San Diego, my oldest daughter was best friends with this little girl who was Indian, and her mom spoke really great English, but like obviously was like a first generation, and we became really good friends. She was like really excited when I knew like some like Indian people, like famous people. She's like, you know, and I was like, yeah. But I don't know if she did that type of art, but there were like, when we would do like sidewalk chalk and stuff on the ground, she was really good at it. So I was like, I feel like
maybe she's learned it from home or something.
Yeah, when I was reading this, it made me think of her. And I was just like, oh, I miss her so much. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you've like seen some portion of it somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're just like these mostly geometric, but like all kinds of different designs they do with like colored. They were saying rice flour.
Oh,
They're
interesting.
using rice flour at times, but they're just like colored powders that they use like before festivals or just for any occasion of celebration or just to decorate their homes.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Why did you like Banu's Aji so much?
I almost felt like her story felt very like three-dimensional.
Okay.
And I almost felt like some of the other stories didn't.
Okay. How so three-dimensional? No. We love hot takes over here. You cannot like books. You cannot like parts of books. It's okay.
Okay. Just the people pleaser in me. You know?
I know.
Remember,
we're trying to stop that.
Yes, we're trying to stop.
We're working on it. We're works in progress.
Well, first of all, I really liked that the author was trying to make such a strong attempt to like tell the stories of like ancestors almost.
Yeah.
And like, because I feel like at least in my life recently, I've realized like this is not something you're interested in as a kid as much. You're like, who cares maybe I was like that. You like just don't realize that it matters like what your mom did when they were a kid, what your grandmother did, what their lives were like, great grandmother. And now I'm like, this is like insanely valuable and I wish I could learn more.
I feel like, you and I are the same age. So I feel like we're going through similar like journeys in that aspect because, oh my gosh, have I been feeling that as well.
Really?
Yes. And I read this insane stat that's going to make me so sad, but like, you don't know, like the third woman back in the line, you don't know much. You forget their name. That's normally when the woman's, and probably men too, obviously, if you're not like some, famous person. But like, I know my mom, and then I know my grandmother who's still alive, luckily. So my girls have a Gigi, a great grandma. But I don't know anything about my grandma's mom, except that my grandma didn't like her. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's so crazy to think about. And then to think about how, okay, so my children, if they have children, I'll be their grandma, but their children might not even know who I am.
No.
So I agree. I think that talking about, the grandmothers in this book was so nice. Do you want to like tell us some of her story?
Yeah, like really put my finger on why her story feels more three-dimensional than the others.
Well, her story had some queer aspects to it in a different nature.
Totally.
So I would love for you to get into that. Cause what we'll do is we'll just tell these characters' stories.
Okay.
Because that's basically
let's get through
whole,
that.
Yeah, it's basically the whole book. So yeah, let's tell all the stories.
So I think she like grows up in a village. So not in the city of Bangalore. She lives outside in one of the villages. And they even tell us about her childhood and how she's brought up, and she has many like fair-skinned sisters who are seen to be as more eligible as brides. And so they want, like, her family is like under this pressure from I don't know where to marry her off quickly, because she's darker skinned and they feel she'll be like less eligible.
And she's the oldest.
And she's the oldest.
And so, yeah, they have to
the
marry.
The cultural thing is that they want to marry off the oldest girl first before they marry the younger siblings off. And so she gets married off pretty quickly into this family, which I can't remember a lot about. Maybe you'll remember.
I think what we learn about that is, like, the family that she married into had a lot of sons, and they really just, like, needed a servant.
Yeah.
Like, they said they had a lot of hands for the fields, but none for the kitchen. I can't believe how much I can remember sometimes.
Your memory is phenomenal, and I'm so glad that you have that, because my memory is so, like, ambiguous and wishy-washy and just, vibes only. I know all the vibes. But.
Yeah. I feel like I'm such an auditory learner, so it just sticks. Really well.
From the podcast audiobook.
Yeah. And so she got married off. It was like the third son, and the mother-in-law like just didn't really like her very much, and they ended up moving to the slum. She's actually one of the first, they say, like, citizens of heaven.
Oh yeah,
which is really cool. And apparently she used to be she was a feminist, basically. Yeah. She helped all the women fill out paperwork. She helped all the women confront systemic issues. I'm you know what? She's the one who took Deepa's mom, Nilama Auntie, to the hospital. So, but now that she's gotten older, people are kind of like, you used to be like this, and now you're like, she's almost like defeated in her like older age.
Yeah, and she's also very sick.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And she's still like doing her art and everything because obviously she has to.
She's hardcore. No one is more hardcore than middle-aged women.
Well, she's like 80.
Yeah, and you know, past there too.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Like,
and
they're insane.
Because, you know what, I think as you get older, you care less about what other people think. And you're like, you know, I was actually just talking about this with my friend Cambry. We were talking about how once you kind of establish a sense of self, and I feel like as women, we don't get the opportunity to establish that until we are later, like, you know, late 20s, early 30s, just because of all the, you have to get over the societal pressures. You have to get over, you know, all the beauty standards. You have to like overcome so many things to then realize like, oh, it doesn't matter. And now I know who I am. I know what I want. And now we just go for it. We don't care what other people think, right? That's why I started this podcast. So speaking of, I think that's what the whole, you know, all the moms are stepping into as well. But, okay, so sorry, a little tangent here and there. Go on with Banu's story. So she gets married. She moves to the slum. Take it away.
She moves to heaven, which is what they ironically called her.
I did love that.
Yeah. And yeah, so she helps everyone out a lot. She's kind of like a force to be reckoned with. She's like kind of like their matriarch almost, like all the moms go to her for help and stuff. But one thing is that her and her husband are like pretty distant from each other in terms of their relationship. She mentions that they like basically only like consummated their marriage and that's it. They haven't had like much physical contact past that. He goes to work, he comes back, and they kind of just like coexist.
Yeah.
And then we find out that one night.
Wait, did you call this before you read about it? Because okay, you did too. What was it that you heard? Because I think there was a specific line in there that I was like, oh.
No, what was the line? I didn't pick up any particular line.
He would come home smelling like cologne.
Oh.
Not perfume.
Cologne. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, interesting.
Okay, detective.
I tried.
Picked up on the
I feel like my gaydar, it's not so much a gaydar, it's more of a like, I'm just a very observant person.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I was like, that's interesting.
It's like, the Capricorn. I see it.
It's the Capricorn in me. I know. My Pisces moon too. Actually, you know
what?
It's more the Pisces moon. Yeah, it's more the Pisces moon than anything because that's like very like spiritually and like vibes connected. I feel like
Pisces moon, and what was the rising? I don't think you ever said.
Aquarius rising.
Oh wow.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all like 10th, 11th, and 12th on the zodiac.
Yeah, I don't know that much, so I'll take your word for it. You got to tell me.
Well, Aries is first of the zodiac, and then it goes down from there, like Aries, Taurus, Gemini.
Okay, got it. So
right?
all three are.
This astrologer that I follow she's the only white astrologer I follow, but I do like her content. Because I try and be careful about the content I consume. But she talks about like the mountain and how like Aries, first of the zodiac, they just like climb up the mountain. They just go. And then each one that follows like has a different perspective that like goes with their sign, right?
Okay.
So like Capricorn is very much like they wait and they watch everyone go up, right? And they figure out who did what and why they did that and what went wrong and what not to do. And then they, you know, they're the mountain goat, right? They just go up steadily, which is why Capricorns apparently like not get better with age, but like complete their goals and as they get older
come into their own
come into their own, but also like have more success as they get older, which I'm like,
we're seeing it happening.
like, yes, let's do it.
IRL.
And then Aquarius is 11, so they're even further after. And then Pisces and Aquarius, she says, hang out at the bottom of the mountain. They're like, why would we even try to climb that mountain? They're like, that's stupid. The grass isn't greener on the other side. It's right here. Like, which I find interesting.
Okay.
But
wow, I love that.
Okay, back to the
good to
cologne.
know. Little astrology lesson. Thank you.
I try.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have like a specific reason why I thought it was going to happen. I just was like, knowing this author and the vibes that I'm getting off of her, I feel like we're going to have a gay man in here soon.
Oh, see, that's different. I didn't feel like that at all. I always love hearing the different like takes that you
perspectives.
get.
Yeah. And so like at that moment when she was, because I think she like buys her column powders and she's like excited to tell him about this idea. So she like sits outside, like preparing herself to like ask for permission and whatever else.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, she is about to see him. And I feel like this is what's going to happen. And so what happens is he like comes back and then she sees another man silhouette with like buzz cut and like a very specific silhouette that is important later.
Very true.
Right?
We'll get there, yeah.
Because she like described it so specifically that I was like, this is going to come up later.
It has to be important.
And basically like she sees him with this man like making out and just, you know, being gay.
Yep. Just being gay. Being happy and gay.
And I think at that moment she feels like relieved actually because she's like, I have an explanation now. And somehow she's like completely okay with it. A lot of the characters in this book are like extremely accepting, which is, I love that. And
I wonder if it's like acceptance or if it's like, I don't have the capacity to care.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like, again, when you're like in survival, but I don't want to take it away from them that they're not accepting because not only are they accepting, they go to bat for them. So
maybe it's like a loyalty thing almost, like because they're like so loyal to each other. They're like very ride or die with whoever they decide is their own.
Yep.
And maybe that's a part of it. So.
I think you're absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
So
they're like, whatever it is, okay, like let's handle it. Let's figure it out. You're one of us, so we're okay with it.
Yeah, we see that with Deepa's blindness.
Yeah.
With Joy's transness. With Rukshana's gayness. But you know what? I'm just making the connection. We're seeing that in a multi-generational format, right? So, which means it's probably why it's been so accepted now with these young 4, 5 girls. Starts out as 4, I forgot to say. Starts out as 4, and then Padma comes in a little bit later because she moves from the village. Okay, so that's a little bit about Banu's Aji. And after she kind of figures out that her husband's gay, she has a lot more, what am I going to call it? Like chutzpah. Like a lot more just, not defiance, but they kind of come to an understanding.
She feels like she has a bargaining chip. Let's be real.
She
feels like she also feels a little bit like empowered to like do what she wants because she feels like he's doing whatever he wants and it might not be again like within the rules of society. So she's like, that means, you know, this gives me, I don't know, that's kind of how I read it.
Yeah, and she even says, like, I mean, and props to her husband because he says to her, like, if you wanted to find someone, like, I wouldn't be opposed.
Yeah, he seems like a mostly fine guy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And I loved her response to that, though, because she was like, why would I want another man in my life? And I was like, girl... She's like, no, I would lose my freedom. At least here, like, we're both getting what we need. We're both, like, having, like, saving face, basically, for our community and our culture. But now I have the freedom and you have the freedom. And, you know, we don't have to worry about that so much.
I really liked her arc. And even, I feel like one thing I think that made her feel more three-dimensional is I felt her voice very strongly. Whereas with the other characters, I sometimes just felt like it was the author's voice, just like, speaking for them almost. Whereas her, it felt like she had like such a strong personality and it was so different than everybody else, maybe.
Yeah, it was definitely a more well-rounded character.
Yes. Despite not seeing much of her. We found out her story like towards the end, right?
Yeah, very true. We didn't get a lot of it. Just that she was kind of an artist, like
periphery,
Banu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, who should we talk about next? Now we're getting to the gay girls. We're getting to the queer girls. Yeah, let's talk about Joy. Because Joy is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Joy used to be Anand, I think was his name. Anand.
Yeah, and fun fact, Anand means happiness or joy. So I think she was just trying to do something with that.
Oh, I love that. That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Anand basically transitioned when he was like 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get in a little bit of the religion as well, because there are like basically Christian missionaries that come and like promise handouts and promise all these things. And they talk about, you know, Jesus and have to convert people. And not Banu, Joy, or Anand at the time. How do you say it?
Anand.
Anand.
Yeah.
Ooh. He is very intrigued about this idea of being born again.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what is this? What is this thing? And he's like, oh, this is exactly what I need.
Yeah.
Great. I will convert.
Yeah.
And I will be baptized.
That is so true. That's what he views it as. He views it as his ticket to like becoming his true self, which is a woman. Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
As much as, I mean, I'm like an ex-evangelical. So, yeah, I know. She doesn't know that about me.
We're learning things today.
We are going to hang out more.
Yes, we need to.
Yeah, the idea of being born again is like you're born new. And I love to see it kind of in such a beautiful light because I have a lot of issues with the church and I have a lot of issues with like, you know, evangelical Christianity. But I didn't have any issue with this. I was like, yes, Joy, use it. And
reframe.
Yes, it's a beautiful reframe.
It's such a good reframe.
And so the family goes to convert the mom and Joy has 4 older brothers. And they all go and they can't find Joy. They can't find her. But then they like get to the baptism area like right when Joy is like coming out of the water. And she's like, I am Joy now. And everyone's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. And Joy is kind of known as like the leader of the group. She's who everyone looks to for advice and for like, what are we going to do?
Queen. They call her the queen all the time.
They do, and that's so cute. I love it. What were your thoughts on Joy?
I actually really like what you said about her using that conversion as her way to like, what's it called? Transition. Because I didn't realize that, but I feel like that was both so clever and like she's like so good at self-therapizing almost, like to be able to do that because it gave everybody else like a way to understand what was happening to her. Because I'm not sure like that they had the vocabulary for it, if they did, like this was it was like an event for them to be like, oh, it's just because she converted to was it Christianity?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Catholicism, but
Oh, it could have been.
One of the two. To be like, oh yeah, it's because of that this happened. And I'm almost like, I feel relief for her that she has such an easy explanation, you know, to like give people, especially in a place where she may not have had the language at all to do it. And it's like so amazing that she was able at 8 years old, able to know what she wanted. And here I am at like 30, like not with all the resources at my disposal, still trying to figure out what I want, a separate problem. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And they really painted her as like a very like self-empowered person. And she had some like support from her mom and like her...
Seems like her dad too, because they are really on board with her going to college and like continuing her marks. And this is where maybe we can talk about Janaki mom. She like... That was one of my favorite exchanges in the book because the girls normally like don't finish school, let alone go to college, especially from the area that they live in. Like college costs money. And with Joy, like she's so good in school. Yeah. She really wants to go to college. And the headmistress is just like, we'll get you there. And the mom is like, are you sure you want to like use your favors like for Joy? And she says, that's what my favors are for.
I know. Janaki ma'am was like the closest I came to crying in this book. I think I was just like touched at the possibility of there being these like advocates in every little corner of the world. And like just I mean, and her example was also amazing, like how she was so like razor focused on like education, and like we are gonna keep, you know, trying to motivate these girls, and we're gonna try and give them resources, and like she's doing it like single-handedly pretty much. Like at one point they even say that she's probably using like her own funds for a scholarship. She says, is it Joy who has that scholarship?
Joy or Padma?
Yeah, Padma. Yeah, so I really liked that. The time when she brings in one of the girls goes to her apartment and they go inside. Banu? Yeah, and like I really liked that whole scene.
I loved that scene. That was such a sweet scene. Yeah, very memorable. Junkie Mom's backstory, though, was really good, too. The reason she was able to be, like, so laser focused was because she was an orphan.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's right.
I loved the writing in this part, because the writer, you know, the author was saying, like, she didn't have somebody telling her, like, how she could be anything she wanted, but she also didn't have anyone telling her
she couldn't
do it. Yeah. Right. So it was really like you got to see her internal drive. And then for her, like, she's also older because she had a lot of the main girl's moms as her students as well. And they also say she has great recall. I was like, that's why I related. I was like, because she remembered all the mom's marks, all the mom's birthdays.
That is crazy. I was like, couldn't be me. Honestly, I was like, that is superhuman.
Yeah, it was such a good storyline. It was basically like her own internal drive, and what she chose to do with that was like go get an education and come back to where she was from and like teach,
uplift people. Yeah. So yeah, she's such a great character. You get to see her kind of meddling in every one of their lives. Yeah. So something we didn't talk about with Deepa was she loves to dance. Oh yeah, we haven't. We did already cover.
Yeah. But with
she loves to dance.
Yeah, Junkie Mom, she was like, I am gonna let her dance in the school play when their teacher, who's kind of a little bit of a bitch, like she is really doesn't
their
care
teachers seem to be.
They don't. They don't care about the girls. Yeah, they are just like there for
jaded,
kind of a paycheck. Yeah,
cynical.
Yeah, so she doesn't. The teacher doesn't want Deepa to dance in like the little 8th grade. Is 8th grade? Okay, yeah. And she doesn't want her to dance, but all the girls and Junkie Mom was like, I'm gonna let her dance. So that was really sweet. So
yeah, they like push for it. Yeah,
and they're like, we're gonna lose anyway. Like, who cares? We
let her
always
dance.
Lose.
Yeah,
let her dance. Yeah.
No, she's amazing.
Yeah, we have Padma and Rakshana.
Who should we do? Let's do Padma first.
I literally barely remember Padma.
Yeah, she was. I honestly feel like the main characters who were like the most memorable were were Banu, Deepa, and Joy. Yeah. Right. Those three had like more of like a formed personality.
Yeah, I wish we had gotten more of Rakshana because to me the way they painted her, I felt like she was probably a little bit more mask.
Yeah, she's like a little tomboy.
Yes, and like she ended up eventually cutting her hair, but they also like it felt very stereotypical because she was very like pushing back on people and like kind of like like I'm gonna be not annoying or mean,
rebellious,
but there it is.
Like a contrarian a little bit.
Yes, exactly. And I was just like, you didn't have to be that way.
No, I'm telling you, the author was she was trying to put it all in there. She was like, people can be like this and people can be like that. People can be rebellious and people can also be like, you know, more
docile.
The opposite of it.
Yeah. So let's talk about
let's do Padma first. Yeah.
You seem to remember her better than me.
Well, I feel like there's not that much honestly, there wasn't that much detail about her. We just know that she comes into the class later than everybody else and like everybody's kind of like looking down on her or like seems to be like ostracizing her a little bit. Because she just moved in from the village and she has like, she looks different than them or like doesn't have as much stuff, like doesn't have shoes or something like that. Yeah. And so they're all like looking down on her, but then one of the girls, who is it? Probably Joy.
It's probably Joy.
Yeah, Joy is like,
or maybe even Deepa.
Yeah. Who's like, no, she's one of us. And they kind of like adopt her into their
sounds like Joy.
Crew. Yeah. But I think all we really know about her, actually, there is one of my favorite storylines in the book was the whole post office storyline. I loved that.
Because Padma's mom, I do want to talk about Padma's mom.
Yes.
Okay.
Key, big character.
Yes. So to understand Padma, you have to understand her mom.
Yes.
And her mom obviously deals with some type of mental illness, which I'm pretty sure is postpartum.
Oh, yeah.
The way they framed it was like after her last baby, she became almost like she went into like some type of postpartum psychosis and never recovered. And as somebody who has like dealt with like postpartum anxiety, I wouldn't say depression. It was definitely more of like a postpartum anxiety. That is a nightmare. And then psychosis is even worse.
Yeah.
And when, again, you don't have a healthcare infrastructure set up, what are these women supposed to do? It's not their fault. It sounds like she's kind of just walking around like a ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting because I remember thinking that when I first read it, but then the whole time we're like seeing it through Padma's eyes, and she thinks that it's because her mom is sad that she left the village.
Right.
Like that's what she thinks. Like she has convinced herself.
That's the only context she has for it.
And she's like, my mom misses the village, my mom misses nature, she doesn't like it here in the city, and it's probably because the timing was like kind of lining up, right? Like she had that baby soon after they left the village. And so she feels like my mom just misses it. And I almost wonder if it's like her seeing herself in her mom because she misses the village herself, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, that's Padma's mom. Go ahead and tell us, about the post office.
Yeah. So this was one of my favorite stories in the whole novel. So the post office story, it's like, so what happens is she needs money in order to go to college because Padma's like very good at school. Like that's her one big personality trait that I can remember, sadly. She's like the class topper or something. And so like Janki ma'am comes to her house and is like, let's make her go to college, like pass her tests and stuff, but they don't have money for it. Her dad is working, but her mom is not. So she's trying to get her mom a job. She finds this post office. She's very clever because she finds like the perfect setting for her mom to work in. Because as we know, it's difficult for her mom to work. And so she needs to stay with her while she's working at the post office. And she realizes that this isn't a regular post office. And I've never heard of this before. Have you?
No, I hadn't either.
I didn't even know this is a
interesting.
thing. And it's kind of like heartwarming that it is a thing. I hope it's real.
I know, right?
So it's this, I don't know, you can maybe explain the post office. It's like
where the letters go, that they like try and find out where the letters are supposed to go and have them re-delivered. Because like when all these slums are getting bulldozed, which again, we'll talk about this after we finish detailing all these people, what the overarching storyline that connects everything is. But then these like tent houses that sort of have addresses that mail is able to get to, now they no longer exist. And so this post office kind of is set up to like try and find where these letters are supposed to go and try and fulfill the mail duty that can't be done. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I took it to mean. Like either, so it seems to me like these are letters that don't have a to or a from address that they can tell. So like they can't even return the letters to sender. So they just like end up in like this limbo mail post office.
So it's all these stories that aren't completed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that it was so beautiful. Like what would happen is, I feel like Padma is supposed to be like a character who's like very lost almost, or like at least somewhat lost.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have like a huge sense of self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that and she seems to be very emotional also because what she does is she ends up reading one of these letters. Oh, and she's really good at languages too because there's like 5 different languages in there. And she's like, I think that also draws her in because she's like, oh, different languages. And so she happens to read a letter and then she's very, I think, like disturbed by these unfinished stories. And so she ends up like pretending to be the people who they're addressed to and stuff and writing these letters back.
Which is crazy. But like also really sweet, but at the same time I'm like, what if they meet and then you've written, so like some of the stories that she rewrites is like,
this person died. She kills off people.
Yeah, she killed off senders. She like told them to find new loves. Like she was playing God.
Yeah. She was doing some crazy stuff. But I really liked it because I was like, it's showing that she's a kid. Like she's such a child.
Yeah, and at this point they're like 15, 16.
Yeah, and I was like, I remember when I was 15 and 16, I was crazy too. Like And it's like it's like a part of, it's like, okay, let me back up. It's almost showing that she feels like she's an adult because she's like, I have the ability to write these letters and look at, I could change their lives. I can make them feel better, like, because I'm an adult. But at the same time, it's like, what are you doing? This is child behavior.
Yeah, reading this as like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but reading this as like a 30-year-old woman, I'm like, girl, you have no idea the repercussions of these actions that you're about to take because you are delivering this letter. Someone is going to read this and think that their lover has died. Like, are you serious? Oh man,
I really liked that. I was like, this feels so real. This feels like something a 16-year-old. She's like means so well, but is a child. She's immature. Like she hasn't thought about it all.
She's such a child, but I think the reason she thinks she's such an adult is because she's had to bear so much responsibility for her family. Yeah. She has to take care of her mom. Her dad's always working. And she has a pretty good view of her father because he's always taking care of them. Yeah. He's always, provided for them. But then she comes across a letter.
The downfall of the last good man.
Seriously. Listen, we don't have negative views of men that aren't based on experience, okay?
Yeah.
So what is this letter that she finds?
Coincidence of coincidence. Okay, it's like a small miracle, honestly. That like in a city of 15 million, larger city of 15 million, she happens to come across this one letter that is from, spoiler, her father's first family. Is it from the
wife? It's
the wife's sister, wife's brother, something like that.
Yes.
Writing to her father, asking for him to pay for his first daughter's wedding.
Yep.
And talking about how, it's his responsibility and like, I know you were a good husband to her, but like she needs you now. And like, husband to her mom.
Yeah, fulfill your duty, basically. Yeah. This is your duty. And Padma's like, I know he will obviously. Because he is a good man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I was like, no, please, can you just let there be one good man in this story?
Because I was like, I love Padma's dad. No, you know what? The good man is Milama Auntie's husband.
I don't even remember him.
He's the one that was like, our family's complete. I love our little
baby girl. That's true. He had his moment in the beginning and then was never mentioned again. I thought he left.
No, he was there.
Oh, he stayed. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so Padma ends up confronting her dad.
Yeah.
I was so scared.
Her arc was wild.
It was wild. The conflict issue is that he ends up saying, like, because he is like a quote-unquote good man, he wants to take the money that the mom has been making and send it to the wedding. And that's Padma's college fund, basically. And
yeah, but how does he find out about the letter in the first place? She just
Padma tells him.
She just tells him. Yeah.
She's like,
That's when he reveals himself.
Yeah, he doesn't reveal himself to be like as terrible as I feel like he could have been, because he does go to like hit her and he doesn't.
The bar is so low, Lauren. What do you mean? Like, he doesn't hit her, so he's not. I guess, yeah.
I'm a recovering people pleaser, okay? Yeah. I like bars on the floor. As long as you can step over it, I'm like, great.
We need to work on this.
We're trying. We're lifting the bar.
Yeah, I think it always alarms me when people, especially men, like, will suddenly show their true colors, because I, at least in my experience, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but haven't had the experience with women where you feel like there's such a like stark mask. Yeah. Like, I'm like, how are you faking it for so long? Yeah. That always scares me the most, I think, in people, because...
Well, because you're like, how do I trust anyone?
Yeah.
Like, she is 16 and she's had this ideal of her dad this whole time. And then...
And he seems to have been great in, like, almost every way.
But I think when people are confronted with their foibles and confronted with their actual actions, I think it can have, like... people's reactions, I don't want to say they're like indicative of who they are, because I do want to give people...
It's indicative of their worst self, maybe.
Yeah, their worst self. It brings out their worst self. Because he's probably feeling attacked, threatened. He probably never thought that this would come to light. But then he does try and do the quote-unquote right thing. And Padma is like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You will not be taking my money. And he's like, tell me the bank account. Because Padma is the only literate one in her family.
Yeah, she's like a math whiz also.
Exactly. And she's like, you don't even know where the money is. There's no way for you to access it. And I'm not going to give you that information.
I'm so proud of her.
I know.
That is brave.
That's
Standing
so brave.
up to a older man at her age, her father.
Especially because the whole time he's threatening to beat her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Padma. The interesting part of the book is we don't really get like a full resolution of like, do these girls go to college? What do they do? But it seems like Padma was
on the track.
Way. Yeah.
On the track. Yeah. I hope so.
Okay, should we get to the gay girl?
Yeah. The flash in the pan.
Yeah, we don't even have a ton of info. I'm like, come on, can we get like a kissing scene? Our next book.
I feel like we were misled a little bit.
I know. I'm hoping our next book
robbed.
is going to be a little bit more spicy, which it might be because I think we're going to do the second book in the Senator's Wife trilogy.
Ooh, I have not read that book.
Read it and then listen to the podcast because it's pretty good in my humble opinion. It's a great book. It's a great read. It's a slow burn, but yeah, it has some spicy elements.
Oh my god! If you want spice, I don't know if we're allowed to talk. We're allowed to talk about other books, or is that like a betrayal?
No, it's not. No, because I want to read all of them.
Okay, then sometime I want you to read it, and then I want us to talk about it.
Okay, we'll have you.
One Last Stop.
Okay.
Yes, read it. If you ever wanted like just like a capital R rom-com.
I do.
It's got like all the spice in it too. They've got the scenes in there. It's not like overly anything. It's not depressing, because that tends to happen
with lesbians.
Yeah, they're like, let's kill one off, or like 100%. Let's do something crazy.
Okay, well, we'll have you back on the pod for that one.
I love that.
Amazing.
Yay!
I'm so excited. Let's get to our gay girl, Roxana.
Yes.
Tell us about her.
Okay, honestly, I feel so robbed of a queer brown woman story, which I thought I was hopefully going to get from this book, which, I mean, nobody's fault. Like, if there's something, still better than nothing,
Oh, now who likes the bar on the floor?
Okay, but you know what
it wasn't marketed.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little bit, but...
It was a little... It's on the list, but I guess what happens with the list is, like, any mention of a lesbian, they're going to be like, let's add it to the list. Yeah, because there's so few. There's, like, you won't even get a mention. So we have, like, maybe 10 pages of lesbianism, queer womanism in this book. We see about Rukhsana, I think... What I did like, though, is that, like... Being a queer woman doesn't necessarily mean like just your relationships. It's also like your gender identity. It's like coming out and like becoming okay with yourself and all that stuff. Yeah. So they did show us like when she's growing up, she grows up Muslim, and like I think some of the programming that's coming from her mom is like, oh, like be more conservative, like cover your head. We do it because we are a part of something bigger, which I also loved that. I'd never heard of that before.
I know. Okay, two things on that one. Mm-hmm. That was a great arc, the covering the head, and how the mom, is it Silva Auntie is her mom? I'm not quite sure, but... Her mom, it's almost like the being born again thing, because she talks about covering herself, which that's what I want to get into in a second. But because Rukhsana doesn't want to wear skirts, she wants to wear pants. Her mom reframes it in a way of like, oh, it's the same. She wants to cover her legs in the same way we want to cover our heads. And I was like, oh my God, like the way they justify it and like change it to fit the narrative, but also be accepting and accommodate your daughter, and like, was beautiful. Yeah. I thought that was beautiful. And then, when you want to talk about the covering and how. Because, I mean, okay, coming from, like, an American standpoint, we tend to, not that I do, because I have Muslim friends, and I understand why they wear hijab and whatnot, but, like, the general trend of, like, uneducated Americans is, like, oh, it's oppressive. It's so oppressive. But the way the author described it, like, to me, was beautiful. So yeah, it was definitely gave a lot of the empowerment back to the person who chooses to do it, right? Or like give us an explanation for why, which I think a lot of people are just missing. Well, what was the explanation? Oh no, that's all I had with with like the feeling like it's something. You're part of something larger. That's what it was. And the crazy thing about Rukhsana's mom is that she's like what's the word for it? A person who is in unions. What's that word? An initiator? No, but she's like a part of a union. She goes to all the protests. That's right. She's a union woman. Yeah. Rukhsana's mom is part of a union. It'll come to me, that word.
for somebody who does all those things.
An organizer?
Organizer.
There
She's
we
an
go.
organizer.
Woo!
Yeah.
Got it.
So she's the words are just like, ooh.
That's okay. We've been talking for almost an hour and a half now, so
Okay.
it makes sense.
So she's an organizer.
Yes.
So I love that she did that. Like, again, author is doing the most. She was like, she's gonna be a Muslim.
We got a union girl
she's gonna
now.
be a Muslim woman who's a liberal organizer, which obviously exists everywhere. But
Right.
the author was like, I want you, the reader, to see this.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to know that this is
See,
possible.
I feel like I'm like not a critical reader because I
Okay.
loved it.
Okay.
I love all the storylines.
Maybe it's just like my background, and you know how.
No, it's not. Your opinion is valid no matter what.
So her mom, and so it's like she contains multitudes, clearly, the mom, because she's like, I will be, because it, yeah. So she accepts her for wearing her pants, and then I think Rukshana's like moment of like freedom or like feeling like herself is when she cuts her hair off, and then she's like, I feel like myself now, I can climb trees. She's very much so like, I want to be like the boys. Like the boys get to do this, they get to play, they get to run in the dirt, they get to just climb trees and do whatever. Yeah. And I did think it was stereotypical, I agree, but I also related to it because I feel like I was very much so like that as a kid. I was very like, I want to play with the boys. Like the boys are so lucky. The boys.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how I grew up before I realized, I'm just,
I can just be queer.
I'm just gay.
I can be a girl, but I'm just gay. Yeah.
But I like understood that like jealousy almost, where it was like, ugh, it's so easy for them. They can just cut off their hair. They don't have to worry about anything. It's just like get dirty and run around.
That makes me, I'm always going to bring a Little Women reference into this. But when Jo says, she goes, she goes, I can never get over my displeasure in being born a girl. And I'm always like, I feel that sometimes. Yeah. Because it's like, but it's not necessarily girlhood or like womanhood. It's the freedom that we're like craving, where we're not restricted to like all the gender norms.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I don't think Rukshana was trans or anything. Yeah. And you're not trans. I'm not trans. But I want that freedom of not being, having to be under all the implications of what it means to be a woman or a girl. Okay, so Rukshana and Leela.
We had like a very short but sweet, sun-kissed in the trees lesbian queer women romance.
They didn't even kiss; they just put their
sapphic
foreheads
romance
together.
Yeah, that was weird. I couldn't even picture it in my head when she was saying it. She was like, because they were like, so they basically, it's wild, but they basically just meet in this this banyan tree. That Rukshana anyway likes to climb because she's a tree climber.
Right.
Which is one of her main personality traits. She's a tree climbing lesbian. Yep. And
it's so true.
Who wears pants. And so she used to climb this tree on her own, and then suddenly she realizes that there's this other girl who climbs this tree that they call the mandap tree because it's like overlooking an area of basically a mandap, which is like where people get married.
That's what I was gonna say. What does that mean? Okay.
And so it's always overlooking like weddings and processions and like all the pre and post wedding stuff.
Yeah.
And so she meets her in this tree and they like very rapidly form a bond like within days, which, I guess accurate.
That's accurate.
Across cultures.
Our Indian U-Haul
we see the U-hauling happening.
It's so true.
Doesn't matter what age, race,
Well,
country.
I also think that women are socialized to make connections faster. Like it's just a lot easier when you are from a marginalized gender to relate and bond over said trauma or said, marginalization.
Oh yeah,
like
love that take.
Yeah, it's just so much easier because you're like, oh, we understand.
There's
each
an
other.
understanding.
Yeah, we understand each other on a more fundamental level, and so it's easier to like open up.
Relate.
And also, women are socialized to be comfortable with vulnerability in a lot of aspects. So
which helps with forming bonds.
So I'm a fan of U-Haul lesbian.
Oh.
No, not U-Haul in the moving fast part.
Okay.
But in the bonding part.
But like how nice it is that we can connect quickly.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah. I always thought it was just because we are more, not always, but socially adept and emotionally intelligent, in touch with ourselves.
That's a huge part of it.
We're good conversationalists, and the vulnerability is a big one. Totally.
Yeah, I think that's all wrapped up in all.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the patriarchy just like socializes men to not be vulnerable, which doesn't help them either.
No,
doesn't help straight relationships.
Yeah. The patriarchy damages men just as much as it damages women.
Yeah, of course.
Because anytime you separate people from their identities or you boil someone down to one specific part, like a tree climber, then it robs you of a full-rounded personhood.
Yeah.
Which is going to obviously result in oppression and marginalization.
And results in it like bursting out from somewhere else in an unhealthy way, which is what we see all the time.
Yep. So yeah, Rukshana and Leela, they love to watch all these weddings and like talk about things they like in the bride, things they like in the groom, and it's just like it's very cute.
Yeah.
It's very cute exchanges that they have, but then one of them, I think it was Leela that was like, oh, why do you like this person down there?
Yeah, so at first they're just talking about the grooms.
Right.
And then like very slowly they start talking about the brides and stuff instead. And I think Leela is maybe the one who like knows about herself already. Yeah. Like she knows she's into women potentially. Yeah. Because she's like leading the conversation. She's the one who holds her hand first too, I think. But yeah, they like notice the brides and they're like, oh, I like the sari, or I like this and that about her. And then Leela's like, what do you like about her? Yeah. Why do you like her? Yeah. And she's like trying to coax that out of her. Like,
yeah, and Rukshana goes, oh, because she's kind of like you.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh.
Lines.
I know.
Laying lines on her.
And then Leela's like, oh, they have like the same conversation. And Leela's like, oh, it's because it's kind of like you. And then they have their little moment.
Yeah. They have like this moment where they're like both, I cannot imagine it in my head because it seems so far-fetched, and but they're like in this tree looking down at people and at the same time forehead to forehead. So I was just like, maybe I missed something, but I'm like, how are they also looking at each other?
She's getting stuck.
In a tree. And I was kind of like, what if they fall? Like, I was so distracted during this whole thing.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. She was caught up in the technicalities.
The logistics of it. Yes. I guess I should have gotten like swept away by the romance, but sadly I was not.
I know. Well, I mean, there wasn't much.
There wasn't much.
This was cute. And, you know, the girls start teasing Rukshana about Leela. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you know, your girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And again, this is where we see her, like, contrarianness come out.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. She's got her own trauma, clearly.
Yeah. We don't really know much about her.
We don't know much about her. We just know that she's, like, somewhat gay. Yeah. Maybe bi. We don't know. Yeah. She's like a little rebellious, and a tree climber. That's it. Who likes pants. Who likes pants and playing with boys.
Okay, I think those are all our characters.
We made it. Did we make it?
Yay! So we're going to move on to like the overarching theme and how like kind of all these storylines connect. And then we'll do what we love to do at the end and profile all of our girls' zodiac signs. I have thoughts on some, and some of them I'm going to need your input. You know a little bit about astrology, yeah?
I know like very little. But that'll just make it more exciting. It'll be so inaccurate.
It'll be really unhinged.
You can aggressively correct me.
Yeah, no, I don't. I honestly, people think I know a lot, but I really just know like a lot of my own signs. So,
I feel like you do know a lot.
I mean, I love your Libra rising. I love any Libra placement.
Okay.
I can't get away.
I was like, where is this going?
My ex-husband's a Libra. My ex-girlfriend's a Libra. Two of my best friends in the whole world are Libras. My sister is a Libra.
Whoa, okay. So, you weren't kidding.
I'm not kidding. Because I'm a Capricorn, I am so black and white in my thinking a lot of times. That Libras are, you know, scales of justice. So, like, they are very balanced in a lot of ways.
One of my best friends is a Capricorn.
Oh, okay.
And she's a big book girly also.
Oh.
And she has a bookstagram.
Oh my God.
And I originally asked her for like recommendations for this too. But I mean, for this to figure out what book to read and stuff.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. Capricorns, we definitely love knowledge. We definitely love to learn.
Yes.
And read and like intake. I'm very much like an intaker.
Yeah, so. And also the memory thing, I see that with her. Oh. So very smart people. Sharp.
I do say, oh my God, thanks. I do say that like when people like give me shit about astrology, I'm like, it's our oldest form of pattern recognition that we literally have.
Yeah. I feel like why are people getting all pressed by it?
Because they think that the stars don't have anything. And it's not, the thing about it to me is like, it's not the stars. The stars and the planet aren't exerting control. It's just a way to use pattern. It's a vocabulary issue.
Yeah.
It's a way to describe it. It's not because
And I just think it's like a way for us to better understand ourselves. Why wouldn't we want Like, even if it's inaccurate, like, it got you thinking, didn't it?
Right.
Like, why wouldn't you want that? Like,
I also think, like,
a framework to understand different personalities and talk about it. Yeah.
Yes. And I think we all just want to be understood, and any type of tool that can be used for it is
absolutely
great. Okay, so let's talk about these demolitions that happen. So there's one when Banu's Aji is, I would say, 30, 40? Like, well into her marriage. She's the one who is one of the first citizens of heaven and very much a feminist. Her husband is gay, and we have a police officer coming to the slum to enforce a, like, bulldozing permit.
notice a bulldozer.
There we go. Thank you. And Banu's Aji in, like, current time, where she's very old and very sick, a lot of people know her as, like, oh, she saved us previously.
She's like, has legendary status.
Yes. But we don't know how. But we find out.
It's a big mystery. Yeah.
I love how you said that. It's a big mystery. Tell us about it.
So I think the thing that, like, ties all the many, many stories of this book together is that, like, demolition. Like, it opens with, there's bulldozers and they're going to come and potentially knock our houses down. And then that, like, continues. Like, that is the thread that keeps the story together. And so, yeah, that first demolition is, like, however many, it's like the last generation's demolition. Basically, she, like, hints at that Banu's Aji having, like, she's the reason it stopped and stuff. And then we find out, should we reveal it?
Let's reveal it. Do it.
So what's happening is, like, this demolition has been going on, like, the potential demolition has been going on for a while. And I think even at that time, they still do the same thing where, like, the people just come and, like, sit in front of the bulldozers to try and stop it from happening. And then we see that in addition to, like, the actual people bulldozing, the police are there as well. And the police chief is also a man with a buzz cut. And
a very recognizable silhouette. And who knows?
Should we become mystery podcast?
We're gonna enter our true crime phase.
I don't think we could do that in a serious way. It would just be like we would just be laughing.
I'd either be laughing or crying. I listened to one.
I hate true crime.
I listened to one, and I can't listen to it anymore because I get so sad.
Yeah, I get sad and I also get mad. I'm like, why are we sensationalizing and, like, making these people larger than life? Like, let's not talk about them.
Yeah, the one that I listened to, it tries to be less, like, perpetrator focused and more victim focused, which I like. Like, I like hearing the stories about the victims and, you know, their lives and everything. But I'm also like, oh, this makes me so sad because they died. Like, they didn't die.
Really
I'm sorry.
sad.
Let me use the, like, actual correct. They were murdered.
Yeah.
Not the passive voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good
so
job.
Anyway, yes, we recognize this police chief. And who is it?
It is her husband's lover.
It's her husband's lover.
Can I hear whispers?
Banu Aji's husband's lover, and boy, does she recognize him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Boy, does she recognize. You're really getting into the swing of
we
the
gotta
true crime
keep our audience engaged.
You guys don't even need to read the book at this point. We have literally gone through every single thing.
I know, but I love it because we get to, like.
There's a lot to talk about.
There's so much to talk about. So how does this transpire? What goes down?
So basically, in my head, I was, like, thinking that she was gonna go up to her and be like, "I'm gonna out you," and, like, that was gonna be the way that she, you know, like, blackmailed him.
Right.
But it took an unexpected turn because she went up to him and
she says that instead of, like, outing him and threatening him, she says, if you do this, then you're going to lose your lover because we're going to have to move back to the
she uses
village.
the love angle.
Yes, which honestly, I am not that good of a person. I would have threatened to out him.
I know.
Like,
I would have done anything. I would have been like, bro, there's a bulldozer in front of my house. I will say anything to you.
Come talk to your man. That's what I would have said. I wouldn't even handle it myself. I'd be like, you see,
I think her man was at work, potentially.
He was.
And also, Banu's Aji was not the person to, like, give her work to anybody else, I think. She's like, I'm going to handle this kind of a thing. She threatened their love. She was like, do you think, like, she took the gentle approach, honestly.
She really did.
She was like, do you think my husband, your lover, would appreciate if you did this to his wife? Who he doesn't love like you, but he does love at least a little.
Yeah. And, like, if you destroy our home, where are we supposed to go?
Oh, yeah, that was the second part. She was like, practically speaking, your lover's going to leave.
Right.
Yeah.
So the police chief ends up calling it off. and she never reveals.
So he really loves him, which also I was like, okay, that's also kind of sweet.
Yeah.
That he wasn't like, so what, I'll find another boyfriend.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
Little glimmers of hope.
I mean, he was an asshole to her, but like, it was still sweet in that he was like, okay. And he called it off. And, you know, a lot of the theme of like the police officers were like, they even said it was like, we're going to get paid anyway. Whether we bulldoze it or don't, we get paid.
Yeah.
So yeah, he ended up turning around. And I think that like lore, when it was passed down to like the younger girls, obviously like things get like sensationalized. And, you know, Banu's Aji, whose name we never get.
It was intentional.
Which is was intentional and was a very specific part of the story. Which I found sad, but I also found it very relevant in going back to what I was saying about like the fourth woman and the third woman generationally back. We don't know their names.
Yeah.
So like I know my great grandmother as my grandmother's mom. Right? My grandmother's Aji or my mom's Aji, you know? And so it's like it was interesting to me to read it through that lens. And yeah, so we never get her name, but she saved, you know, heaven. And then it got passed on to the girls, and that's how the whole tie-in of like how the girls end up saving their homes from the demolition. So
they basically like, you know, this is a terrible example, but you know how like colleges will like on the cover of their brochure will have like all the diversity possible. Like they'll see like a diverse friend group sitting down and the photographer will be like, go over there and take a pic. Now you remember? You remember what happened?
I do.
Yeah, so Deepa was basically like, so okay, throughout the novel we forget to mention this white photographer who's everywhere.
Following them around. Banu like loves her.
Yeah, but Banu is like, I think she's interested in her from an artistic perspective because Banu's like clearly an artistic person, and she was like, it's almost like an interest based thing for her where she's like, I get to do photography kind of a thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And so this lady's like always around like trying to chronicle it, but they never really tell us what she's going to do with the pictures. And the lady seems to have good intentions, but I think it's like just the classic like white savior thing where it's like,
100%.
A Western person goes to, you know,
an Indian slum, capture it,
or any brown country, takes a picture with a bunch of people, doesn't know their names, just brings it back, and like, you know, I don't know for what.
Yeah.
But then I think it's Deepa.
Because the moms don't want Deepa there.
Yes, Deepa like randomly towards the end finds Abu.
She does. A boy with polio.
Yeah.
Which again, trying to shove everything in there.
Yeah, but I think it's cute. Like it felt authentic to me, their relationship. I do wish we had like some backing, but also like where was their time in all of these stories to also give us more background on how she found this boy person who seems like he's sweet. He stands up to his parents, seems like a feminist in training.
Well, and the girls accept him.
Yeah, that's like, a big one.
They're like, oh, this is Deepa's future husband. Got it. We're going to protect him.
Yeah, I mean, at first they're like, who is this man? And then they go to the butterfly sanctuary. Yeah, no, they're like, for real, who is this man with? They're like protective. Yeah. And they feel like she deserves better and stuff, which, I mean, we all feel for all of our friends no matter what, you know? Yeah. But then I think he proves themselves to her because, oh my God, he says some sweet, remember at the butterfly sanctuary?
Yes.
When Deepa's asking, like, what does this butterfly look like, and he's like, this one looks like what mint feels like when it's sprouting from the earth. And so he's giving her things from like other senses to help her understand. And I was like, that's gross and beautiful. When I say gross,
really, I mean like seems like he understands Deepa because he's coming from a disabled perspective. He has like a really messed up back from polio. So he understands like struggle and like what disability can feel like. And I'm not disabled, so I can't speak on that. But like, you know, he describes things to her in ways that she can like understand. And then I'm like, perfect. They're perfect. I think that's what makes Joy be like, oh no. He's ours. Yeah.
She's like, okay, join us then.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they say like towards when they're heading back, they're like, he didn't feel like a boy. He just felt like one of us girls.
Yeah.
Which I was like, sweet.
Okay, so we're now at the demolition. It's about to happen, and who shows up but the photographer?
Yeah. So it's like a full cast scene. I think everyone is there.
Everyone's there
except Janki ma'am. Maybe everyone is there.
Oh no, she does show up.
Oh, she does.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she does show up at the very
full
end.
cast and crew. Everyone's there. And I think it's Deepa who has a brilliant idea of being like, listen, we have like a photo scene moment here. And so she brings in the photographer and she like brings herself and her fiance and who else? Joy.
Yep.
She was basically like, let's commodify our minorityness.
Honestly, she uses the way the Western world looks at disability and poverty and, all these intersections of oppression and says, photograph it, do it.
Yeah,
Use
in front
us
of the
in this
bulldozers.
way if it's going to save our home.
Yeah.
Which
And
sucks that
she
has to do
uses,
that.
and it's not even just the photo alone. It's like the threat of the photo to one of the guys specifically. And they had been paying attention to what each of these bulldozing men has been talking about and knowing what's important to them. Like one of them has a daughter that's eligible to marry.
Right.
One of them has like a job that they want to get or something.
Yep,
the third
promotion.
one, I don't remember what he's like their manager or something.
Okay.
And so she uses like the repercussions of this photo to like basically tell them to stop.
Yep.
Right.
And they do, under the threat of like exposure of they know what they're doing is wrong, right? Like literally capitalism destroys everything. And it's like, yeah, this might be like what you call a slum, but it's our home.
Yeah.
And all you want to do is put up the second part of a parking lot.
Yeah.
So I have another song reference.
Is it from Driver's License? No.
Actually, I love that album. Or
Me
that
too.
Everyone hates on Olivia Rodrigo. I'm like, I'm still
Why?
17.
She's a genius.
No, they paved paradise to put up a parking lot.
Oh, what is that?
It's a song.
Okay, but what song?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it's in 2 Weeks' Notice, and I'm a huge Sandra Bullock fan.
Okay, yeah.
Which she also lays down in front of a crane. So there you go. Little Women and Sandra Bullock are my
relevant to
hyperfixations.
the larger state of events in the world right now.
Yes, right.
Horrible.
Yeah. So then they leave, and the book pretty much concludes there.
Yeah.
It's like a repetition of history generationally.
That's true. That was really nice.
Yeah. I thought it tied up a lot of loose ends, and especially having like the full cast there, like you said, kind of gave it a good like ending point. Final thoughts.
So one big major final thought, I think for me, just going off of like the whole feeling like an education project, like this book.
Yeah.
So I read a couple of the author's interviews too.
Oh, okay.
And obviously I read her essay and everything. And I actually felt like the book was very much so like written for outsiders, like, and written for the Western world and for like, or for anybody who is not familiar with that world.
How do you think not you specifically would do it different, but like if it was by an Indian author written for an Indian audience, what do you think would be different?
I almost feel like this particular perspective is so niche and so like there's just so much to it. It's so fraught. There's just so much going on that I almost feel like I wish it could have been written from the perspective of the people experiencing it. Like I almost don't feel like it could be valid unless it's coming from them.
Sure.
Even if every attempt was made to find out their stories. And I almost also
like
wish
the photographer.
Yeah, I was thinking that, Lauren, and I was like, is this too extreme of a take to have? That this book feels like what the photographer was to the girls. It kind of a little bit feels like that. It's not horrible, it's really, it's actually very good. I see her intent. She was trying to like show all of us what it's like. More importantly, show that like, resilience and diversity and against all odds and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish that we could have these stories from the people who are actually going through it, because I also feel like the book was extremely romanticized.
Sure. Oh yeah, for sure.
There was metaphors out the, like there was there was so many metaphors. Some of them were beautiful. Some of them were like, I was like, what are you doing?
Too flowery.
Yeah. Like I remember there was one line she was like, the air is thick like sambar. And sambar is like, it's like this type of dal that like a staple in South India that everyone eats. It's like saying, I don't know. It's like saying if you're in the South, it's like saying the air was crunchy like fried chicken. Like it's like saying something like that. And I was like, girl, you are pushing it without, and there's a lot of moments like that. It was like extreme stereotyping, but she was clearly trying to use metaphors that are applicable to that area. So she was like, what she was trying to imagine their reality. I think that it felt like an imagined reality. Like, what would those girls think the sky looked like? Oh, they would compare it to something they've seen before. So it would be like this.
I think that's a really good take though.
Yeah.
Like we can't just give credit to an Indian author who's Indian American when you're talking about stories. And I'm sure she did her best job.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It would have been great to get a story, or maybe even an essay or an interview, maybe like an
or
interview.
even a name. Like maybe they didn't want to give their names, you know, maybe they were happy with the way, but like these are like such specific stories. I like wish we could have known who these things, it was almost like a documentary, you know.
Yeah, it did feel very documentarian. Yeah, I totally agree.
That's one. And then I have one more.
Yeah, what is it?
One more like overarching take. I feel like I was talking to my friend Tanvi about this, who's the other Aquarius I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Who's the other reader. That like one thing that like immediately puts you off for myself when you're reading books like this is like, I feel like it's just perpetuating stereotypes that the West already has about India. And it's like, do we need another like quote unquote like trauma porn story about about India that's like painting all these things that maybe we already have these
like we want to get away from that. We want to, but see, I do think that she, and not to like invalidate that, but I do think that she did try and stay away from that in painting all the joy. But you also don't want the joy to be forced, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's what you're getting at with like the metaphors and the
it was so romanticized, like and that and I relate to that, because as somebody who doesn't live in India anymore, when I go back, I really feel like everything is so romanticized because you're only there for a little while.
Sure, it's like a
and
vacation.
it's a vacation, exactly. And so it's a fine line, because obviously as an outsider, you don't want to say anything bad, you know. And so she wants to portray it in a beautiful way, and she wants everybody to see it how she sees it. But I just don't think that it was necessarily their story as much as it was her perception of their story.
It wasn't like a realistic.
I don't know if it was realistic. It just didn't feel fully three-dimensional, didn't feel authentic. It felt like an outsider's view. And another interesting thing that I saw in her interview, and I'm almost done with my rant.
No.
Was that she was saying that this book was for herself. And she like, this book just like kind of came out of her from her experience. And I think that's actually very accurate. It felt like it was just like her pouring out her feelings and her thoughts of her experience there. And I think her voice came through so strongly in every single one of her characters, like her beliefs and her opinions, which also maybe was why they didn't feel fully like genuine and authentic and
right, because it's one person in 5 different personalities. Yeah. And that's hard to be like well-rounded.
Yeah, and you know, maybe a lot of authors do it very well. So I don't know what it is, but
and I think
that's just
like,
what I thought.
Yeah, no, I love your thoughts. I think it's also her debut novel, so
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully she grows more. But I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But again, I'm not like the most critical reader.
No.
I read things for like story and enjoyment. And in that aspect, I think I really enjoyed it. But I did also agree with you, or I do agree with you in that it was very flowery, which. As a Pisces moon, I loved.
I love the flowery,
Yes, the writing I thought was beautiful, and I think I get like not overshadowed, but like I let that color my viewing of the story.
Yeah.
And I think also because I do have like Indian friends, I know that that's not like, exactly everyone's perception or lived experience.
Totally.
But okay, fine. I love our final thoughts.
Yes. Did you have any?
Ooh, I mean, I think I just gave them. I do think, I loved Joy. Joy is probably my favorite character next to Neelama Auntie. Because I have a lot of like similar experience. Like I've had multiple miscarriages. Like, and then obviously Padma's mom with the postpartum stuff. Like, in those aspects, that might be why I felt it was slightly more well-rounded, was because I ended up also relating with a lot of the moms and how they were viewing their daughters, because I have 2 daughters, and the protection aspect was there. I wonder if this author has daughters. Because, like, in that viewpoint, like, everything made me so sad. In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I wasn't...
You just related so strongly to it.
Yeah, I wasn't putting myself in Rukhsana's place or, Banu's place. I was in, like...
The mom's
place going, oh, God, like, watching these things happen.
Oh.
But, yeah, overall, I really liked it. I wonder if there's like a rating we could do, a lesbian rating. Lesbian rating was like a 1.5.
We don't have enough information.
1.5
Not
out of
enough
5
content. Yeah.
on that part. In the writing style, 4 out of 5. Loved it. Was
I would give it like a
beautiful.
3
Yeah.
and a half. I felt like the metaphors were forced at times. That's why.
I feel like you and I really love talking about Cersei and Song of Achilles.
I was literally going to bring up Cersei because, okay, that to me is like 5 out of 5
Yes,
writing.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, you would give Cersei a 5 out of 5.
Yeah,
That's why I
would.
was relating
Like,
here.
one of my favorite, I think it's my most favorite book of all time, potentially,
I
in
wish
recent times.
it had more lesbian themes and we could cover it because
Cersei, yeah.
Like Song of Achilles is one of my favorite books of all time. But I'm like, it's gay boys.
And gay
I don't want to talk
boys.
about, but also their love's so beautiful.
Their love is so beautiful and
But
tragic.
yeah, when you said 3 out of 5, I was like, that's because Cersei is 5 out of 5.
That's because I read Cersei.
Which
Cersei
reads
ruined me.
Oh, it's such a good book. Okay, let's talk about the astrology.
Okay.
Let's
get into
start
it.
with Joy, the leader, the outgoing personality type.
Confident despite all odds.
That does give me Aries energy, but I feel like she's a little
Leo?
softer. Leo energy.
All I know about Leos is, from what I've heard, is like that they like to be in the spotlight.
See, I almost feel like Deepa is more Leo because she can't see. She like has like a disregard and like abandonment of like self criticism, but also like external criticism. And like I feel like she, if she had her sight, would give off more Leo energy. But I feel like she could like really be in that.
Yeah.
I feel like with Joy.
Deepa's name, by the way, means light.
Oh, that's
She
such
was
Leo.
doing something.
Light is
With
Leo
the blind
is the
girl
sun.
whose name is Light.
Yeah,
Doing the most.
The Leo is the sun,
Oh.
literally.
Okay. there
Like,
you go.
okay, so that's perfect. Ooh, nailed that one.
Okay.
Let's see, who's like really emotional and feeling? Because that would be
Padma.
That would give us a water sign. Yeah.
Padma means lotus, by the way.
Oh.
I think she like intentionally picked the names that she picked.
Yeah, no, I love that you know what they mean because I was just like Padma. Which I had a friend named Padma and I had a friend named Lakshmi.
Yeah, Lakshmi is just the name of one of the goddesses.
Okay.
Goddess of wealth.
Ooh. Okay. File that one away. So Padma would probably be a Cancer.
Okay.
Cancers are
Trying to remember her again. Oh yeah, with the post office and the letters and the way she stood up.
Ooh, that could be very Pisces energy. The romantic.
It felt a little, the Delulu-ness also felt a little,
That would be a
the
Pisces.
Delulu-ness.
My Pisces moon. I love my delusion.
I feel like I'm actually a Pisces, so I relate to that.
I do too. We've talked about this because you're really cuspy. So you're like, your birthday's tomorrow,
Yes.
which is like Aries season starts tonight.
Yeah, if I was born 3 hours earlier, I'd been a Pisces.
See?
So
And you strike me
I just
so much
emerged
more
a
as
little late.
Pisces. Yeah. Okay, so I do think Padma's probably a Pisces because she is very not delusional, but romanticizing.
Yeah.
She goes,
She's like kind of idealistic to the point where she like doesn't see the repercussions of her actions.
Yeah.
She feels so deeply for these people she doesn't know.
She does.
I'm so proud of her for standing up to her dad, though. She's got some kind of stronger. Not that Pisces don't stand up to people.
No,
but
no. Her probably moon sign is like Aries in that aspect because she's just like firmly believes and is like, no, I have to do this.
Yeah, and she did like go through with sending those letters. Like that was wild.
That takes some serious. Okay, Rakshana, I feel like it's Scorpio energy, like mysterious and like hidden. Because not that she hides herself, but
She's definitely suppressing her emotions. Like that's the vibe I get.
Yeah, and Scorpios keep everything very close to the chest. Oh, yes. Okay. Who else we have? We have two. We did Padma.
We have Banu.
Oh, Banu. Oh, the artist type. She could in Aquarius. She's like
She's very no nonsense too.
Yeah, that's why I say Aquarius. And she's also like well-rounded. She's like kind of the weirdo of the group.
Yeah.
And that's who I feel like Aquariuses are. They're like the aliens of the zodiac.
Okay.
And I feel like she's like a builder and an artist.
I also feel like she has some fire.
Oh, well,
Aquarius a
fire? No, it's air.
Okay,
But-
because of like her, not her becoming the like graffiti artist of the town and
but a secret.
wanted criminal.
Secret graffiti artist.
True.
Which, yeah, I feel like that gives... Yeah, that could definitely... She could definitely have more fire in the chart. We're only doing sun signs, which aren't always, like, as indicative.
Right,
of, like,
yeah.
Everyone's full chart. Oh, and joy.
Joy. No, we did joy.
No, we didn't.
No?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought, we started with joy and then we, like, rapidly switched over to Deepa.
Oh,
We had
that's
started
right. We
with
never
her.
actually
We
did
never,
joy.
like, assigned our...
Because I love
Beard.
Joy so much, I want to make her a Libra. Which, like, she is well-rounded, and she's very, like, although she could be very Gemini. She's very smart. Geminis are incredibly intellectual
Yes.
and, like, passionate people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I said that I thought she might be a Leo. That's how we got
Yes,
there.
and that's how we went to Deepa.
Yeah. Just because I feel like she is so, like, she loves herself, you know, and, like, is, like, not scared to, like, show it.
That's Libra energy, though.
Oh.
Yeah. That's...
Maybe I need to learn something.
No. Libras are ruled by Venus. So they, like, love beauty and, like, yeah.
Love.
Yeah. We don't have many earth signs. We didn't say Capricorn, Taurus, or Virgo.
I don't think, maybe one of the moms is a Taurus.
Yeah. Yeah, the mom's definitely, or Banu Aji gives Capricorn vibes to me. Like staunch in convictions, moral.
Honestly, or even a Sagittarius.
Ooh, yeah. Sagittarius
Because-
is not hard for me.
Oh, yeah?
My
Yeah,
daughter's
me
a Sag.
Hard for you? Like how?
They're so different.
They are so different.
They're so
I have a
different.
lot of, I have some, it's a controversial sign for me too. Also.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Just because I feel like she does some things that are like so like out of the norm and is like willing to
Yeah.
just like be a little crazy sometimes. Like even with the column thing, when she
Yeah.
decides to do that, like that is like just a brainchild of her own and is like
For sure.
she's willing to break out from.
The norm.
But I guess not that much. Like she breaks out, but she's not like a full rebel. So I don't know what that sign would be.
That sounds very earthy.
Mm-hmm.
That could be Virgo. Virgo, yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to get an astrology expert on here to go over all my stuff because like I barely know anything.
I don't know anything.
But
Going
it's
off
so
vibes.
much fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. We'll have you back for what was the book you recommended?
One last stop.
One Last Stop. We'll definitely have you back on for that.
Amazing.
Our next book, I believe, will be the second installation of The Senator's Wife. We'll have Haley come back on. And then there might be some few things in store that are going to be a little different. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.